Have you ever stopped to think about how an empire as large as Rome managed to conquer practically the entire known world at the time? It wasn't just the courage of its soldiers or the strength of its battles. The true key to Rome's success lay in something much more incredible and frightening: its war equipment. Just imagine, they had powerful weapons, giant machines, and strategies so well thought out that they made even the largest armies tremble with fear. Imagine yourself, as an enemy soldier, seeing a huge mobile tower approaching your city, or being hit by a spear that not only hurt, but destroyed your shield. And the worst part, you didn't even know what was worse: the brutal strength of the siege engines or the intelligence behind each invention. In this video, we'll delve deep into the secrets of these machines of destruction that made Rome invincible. And, believe me, the story behind them will leave you speechless. Let's go! Before we start exploring the next topic, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, because what follows is a series of incredible videos that will help you better understand the history of Rome and how it can inspire your personal journey. Don't miss any content. Imagine living in ancient Rome, where each soldier carried with him a weapon that was not just a piece of metal, but practically part of his body: the Gladius. This short and powerful sword was largely responsible for transforming the Roman army into a virtually unbeatable force. Unlike other weapons of the time, the Gladius was made to be fast, precise, and lethal. But what makes this sword so special? To understand, we need to delve into its fascinating history, from its creation to the battlefields where it became a legend. The Gladius was not a completely Roman invention. They took inspiration from the swords used by the Celts in the Iberian Peninsula, today Spain and Portugal. These Celts used robust and sharp weapons that caught the attention of the Romans during their military campaigns. The Romans, always practical and strategic, realized that they could adapt these swords to create something that was even more effective in combat. This is how the first model of the Gladius was born, known as the Gladius Hispaniensis, literally, Spanish sword. This first model was larger and heavier, about 70 centimeters long. It was perfect for thrusting and cutting, something essential in open field battles, where soldiers had room to maneuver. However, as the Roman army faced new challenges, they needed a more versatile weapon. It was then that the Gladius began to evolve. Instead of being just big and powerful, it became smaller and easier to use, especially in closer combat. Over time, an even more practical version emerged: the Gladius Pompei. This model was shorter and lighter, with straight edges and an incredibly sharp tip. Why was this so important? Imagine being in a battle surrounded by enemies, where every move needs to be quick and precise. A poorly timed strike could mean the difference between life and death. The Gladius Pompei was designed for just such situations. Its point was ideal for piercing enemy armor, while its straight shape helped maintain balance and facilitate quick cuts. The Gladius' impact was not limited to the battlefield. It also played a role in Roman rituals and culture. When a soldier retired or was promoted, his Gladius was often kept as a symbol of his achievements. This shows how the Gladius was more than just an instrument of war; it was part of a legionary's identity. Interestingly, the Gladius also became famous in gladiatorial spectacles. These fighters, often slaves or prisoners, used versions of the Gladius in fights that entertained crowds in Roman amphitheaters. The word gladiator, in fact, comes from the name of this sword. Despite its simple appearance, the Gladius was incredibly versatile. It could be used to thrust, cut, and even intimidate opponents. This combination of simplicity and efficiency made it iconic. No other sword has been as closely associated with an empire as the Gladius was with Rome. The Gladius is more than just a sword; it is a piece of history that carries stories of courage and strategy. When we think of the power of the Roman Empire, we cannot help but remember the role that this weapon played in its expansion and the legacy it left to the world. The Testudo formation, known as the turtle formation, was one of the most impressive and effective strategies used by Roman soldiers. Its name comes from its resemblance to a turtle's shell, as the group of soldiers was completely covered by a solid layer of shields. This formation was designed to protect the legionaries from ranged attacks, such as arrows, stones, or spears launched by enemy catapults. The soldiers in the front line held their shields vertically, forming a sturdy wall to protect the group from direct attacks. The soldiers on the flanks created lateral barriers with their shields, ensuring that nothing could reach the group from the flanks. Meanwhile, the soldiers in the middle raised their shields above their heads, creating a complete cover that served as a roof against projectiles coming from above. It was a veritable mobile fortress in human form. This formation required incredible discipline, since any gap between the shields could expose the soldiers to enemy attack. Each legionary knew exactly where to stand and how to position his shield, and this was the result of intense training. The precision with which the formation was assembled demonstrated the excellence of the Roman army in working as a cohesive unit, where collective effort was more important than any individual action. The testudo was widely used in specific situations, such as in sieges of enemy cities or advances in open terrain. In these situations, the formation allowed the army to advance safely until it got close enough to attack. Even in the midst of intense bombardment, the shield structure was so solid that projectiles would bounce off or get stuck without causing significant damage. Another fascinating aspect of the testudo was its adaptability. Soldiers could adjust the formation as the battle required. If they faced more intense attacks from a particular side, for example, they could reinforce that area with more shields. This flexibility made the testudo even more efficient and versatile, capable of dealing with a variety of battlefield situations. The formation was not only a defense tool, but also a morale booster. When Roman soldiers marched in a testudo formation, they conveyed an image of strength and invincibility to their enemies. It was as if the Roman army were saying, "Nothing can stop us." This had a powerful psychological impact, demoralizing the enemy before the melee even began. The testudo formation was also a symbol of Roman discipline. Each soldier trusted the companion next to him to hold his shield correctly and keep the structure intact. This mutual trust was essential, because if one soldier failed, it could put the entire group in danger. This shows how loyalty and coordination were fundamental values in the Roman army. Furthermore, advancing in the testudo was slow, which could make it vulnerable in situations where speed was required. Another challenge was the physical strain on soldiers in maintaining the formation. Holding shields in the correct position for long periods was exhausting, especially during prolonged sieges or advances over difficult terrain. This required not only intense physical training, but also mental stamina to withstand the pressure of remaining steady while projectiles rained down on them. The testudo formation also required specific conditions to be used effectively. In uneven or mountainous terrain, it was more difficult to maintain the structure cohesive. For this reason, it was most commonly used on flat terrain or near enemy fortifications, where it was most effective. Roman commanders knew exactly when and where to deploy this formation to achieve the best results. Despite its limitations, the testudo has stood out as one of the most innovative formations in military history. Its simplicity and efficiency demonstrated the strategic genius of the Romans, who knew how to combine innovation with discipline. The formation became a landmark in the art of war, remembered to this day as an example of how coordination and teamwork can overcome seemingly insurmountable challenges. The testudo was also a reflection of the practical mindset of the Romans. They knew that no strategy worked in isolation, and so they integrated the formation with other tactics and weaponry. Soldiers in testudo were not only protected, they could also use their spears and swords to advance and repel attacks while maintaining their defensive structure. Over the centuries, the testudo formation inspired other defensive strategies in different armies around the world. Its effectiveness and simplicity served as the basis for defensive tactics in later times. It was not only a tool of war, but also a testament to the human capacity to overcome challenges through creativity and teamwork. The tortoise formation was not just a military strategy, it was an expression of the Roman spirit of discipline, innovation, and unity. Every shield raised and every step taken in Testudo represented the strength of an army that understood that true victory came from collective effort. This lesson in collaboration and coordination is one of the reasons why Testudo remains so fascinating to this day. Just to clarify, as we mentioned in the text above, the word testudo is a real word from Roman history. It comes from Latin and means tortoise. This term was used to describe the defensive formation used by Roman legionaries, which resembled the shell of a tortoise. The testudo formation was widely documented by Roman historians such as Tacitus and used in many battles, especially in sieges and advances under projectile attack. So, did you know how the Roman army became one of the most imposing forces in history thanks to its powerful weaponry and innovative strategies? Tell us in the comments if you already knew about this impressive journey of courage, military technology, and determination that helped Rome conquer the world. If this topic fascinated you as much as we did, don't forget to leave a comment. We'd love to hear your opinion and continue this conversation about the secrets of the Roman Empire. Roman soldiers were known for their incredible discipline and efficiency in combat, and part of this effectiveness came from the armor they wore. Roman armor was not heavy like many others of the time, on the contrary, it was designed to be light and allow freedom of movement, but without sacrificing protection. One of the most well-known armors worn by Roman legionaries was the larica segmentata. It was made of iron strips, which were connected by leather, forming a very resistant armor, but which still allowed the soldier to move easily. The larica segmentata was a true innovation in military design. It covered the torso and protected vital areas, such as the lungs and heart, but without restricting the soldier's movements. This was crucial, as the Romans needed to be agile in combat, moving quickly to attack or dodge. Unlike other, heavier, and bulkier armor, this iron strip solution was more flexible. But the larica segmentata was not the only armor worn by Roman soldiers. There was also the larica hamata, a mail armor, composed of small interlocking metal rings, which made it more flexible than the larica segmentata. This armor was very good at absorbing impacts from knives and arrows. The galea had reinforcements on the sides and at the back, the nape. The galea covered the skull well, but also gave soldiers good vision and hearing, which was essential during battle. The design of the helmet was made so that even when the soldier was wearing full armor, he could still move quickly. In addition to the helmet, Roman soldiers also wore greaves, which were metal protections placed on the legs. Greaves were very important because they protected the soldiers against low attacks, such as sword blows or arrows aimed at the legs. They were made to fit well to the body. Even though they were made of metal, the greaves were relatively light and did not interfere with the quick movements that the Romans needed to make in combat. This set of armor, larica segmentata, larica hamata, galea, and greaves, allowed Roman soldiers to fight efficiently, without feeling heavy or restricted. While other armies used heavy armor that hindered movement, the Romans had a perfect balance between protection and mobility. They were able to protect their vital parts without losing agility, and this made all the difference in battles, where speed and flexibility could be as important as brute strength. The secret lay in the intelligent design of these armors. The larica segmentata, for example, used iron strips that overlapped each other so that the protection was greater, but without adding excessive weight. The leather helped to keep everything in place, while the iron strips ensured that blows were cushioned. The larica hamata, on the other hand, being more flexible, was great for situations in which enemies attacked with blades or projectiles, absorbing the impacts effectively. The Romans were also very clever in designing their armor for different types of combat. If a soldier needed to be more agile in close combat, the larica segmentata provided good protection without compromising the ability to move quickly. For longer-range combat, such as when using bows and arrows, the larica hamata provided good protection against impact, allowing the soldier to move quickly. In addition to armor, the Romans took great care in training their soldiers physically. They needed to be ready to fight on any type of terrain, in any type of weather, and armor helped ensure that they could move without becoming overextended. For the Romans, being well protected while also being fast and flexible was the key to success in battle. The combination of light, durable armor, and rigorous physical training allowed Roman soldiers to be nearly unbeatable. The design of Roman armor also reflects the great value the Romans placed on strategy and organization. Armor was not only an item of defense, but also a tool to ensure that the soldier was always ready for action. Each part of the armor had a clear function. The larica segmentata protected the torso, the larica hamata protected against cuts and arrows, the galea protected the head, and the greaves kept the legs safe. Another important characteristic of Roman armor was that, despite being light, it was no less resistant. The Romans knew how to use materials such as iron and leather effectively, creating a defensive set that could withstand blows and attacks. This made the Romans stand out in battles, as they could attack quickly, but also defend themselves efficiently. These armors were also a symbol of the power of the Roman army. When the soldiers gathered together, all dressed in their armor, it seemed as if they formed an iron wall that nothing could break through. This not only helped in battle, but also sent a message of strength and invincibility to their enemies. For the Romans, the combination of protection and mobility was essential. They knew that in order to win in battle, they needed to be fast, but they also needed to protect themselves. Their armor reflected this balance, and that is what made it so effective. The Romans used this armor strategically, adapting it to the needs of each battle, and this helped them build an empire that would last for centuries. Ultimately, the armor of Roman soldiers was not just for protection, it was a fundamental part of the Roman war machine. With it, the Romans could advance with confidence, knowing that they were well protected, but without losing the speed and flexibility needed to win. This perfect balance between defense and mobility was one of the keys to the success of the Roman army and to the creation of an empire that influenced history for a long time. The Pilum was a very clever spear used by Roman soldiers, and it had a huge impact in battle. This spear was not like other weapons, it had a very clever design that made it super effective. The Pilum had a metal tip, and when it hit a shield, the metal would bend, making the shield unusable. This meant that the enemy could no longer use the shield to protect themselves. But the Pilum was not only good for destroying shields. It was also very dangerous for soldiers who were not protected, and could even cause serious injuries. When the Romans went into battle, they used the Pilum before engaging in hand-to-hand combat. They would throw the spear from a distance, disorganizing the enemy ranks and leaving the battlefield confused and chaotic. This gave the Roman soldiers an important advantage, because by the time they got to fight up close, the enemy was already shaken and had fewer resources to defend themselves. Roman legionaries were trained to throw the Pilum accurately, and it could reach between 20 and 30 meters, depending on how good the soldier was at throwing it. This made the Pilum a versatile and lethal weapon, capable of destabilizing the enemy before the physical confrontation even began. The simplicity of the weapon, with a metal tip and a simple design, made it effective and easy to use, which made it essential in battles. In short, the Pilum was one of the main reasons for so many Roman victories, making the Roman army stronger and more feared. Before we move on to the next topic, I noticed that you haven't liked this video yet. This is super important because it helps YouTube to share our content with more people, and so we can continue to bring you more information to help you. So, don't waste any time, leave your like here, it's free and makes all the difference. Thanks! The Romans were renowned for their prowess in battle, but they were also extraordinary engineers, with an impressive ability to design sophisticated war machines. Not only were they good fighters, but they also knew how to use their inventions to ensure victory. When it came to conquering cities and fortifications, they used a variety of highly effective siege equipment. These machines were not only weapons of destruction, but also represented the Romans' ability to dominate the battlefield through intelligence and innovation. the Romans pioneered the creation of these machines and used them to overcome the most challenging defenses, showing that warfare was not just a matter of strength, but also of ingenuity. This equipment offered protection from projectiles and created a platform for the soldiers, allowing them to climb easily and attack with greater precision. To make mobile towers even more effective, they were often used with other siege engines to create an unbeatable line of attack. During the attack, the soldiers would stay inside the towers and advance slowly, protecting each other as they approached the enemy fortification. Once they reached the wall, they could use movable bridges or ladders to climb and conquer the highest point, forcing their way into the cities. Another extremely important piece of equipment for the Roman army was the catapult, and within this category, the onager and the scorpio stood out. The onager, also known as the warhorse, was a throwing machine that used a large brace to hurl huge stones at walls. These stones were not only large, but also heavy enough to break through the walls of fortifications, creating gaps through which Roman soldiers could invade. The scorpio, on the other hand, was a more compact but equally powerful version, similar to a type of giant crossbow. The scorpio fired massive arrows at high speed, which were used to knock enemies down from a distance, or even to hit weak spots in walls. Battering rams were also an essential part of the Roman arsenal. These heavy machines were used to batter down wooden gates. The canopied ram was even more advanced, as it protected soldiers while they used the ram to break down the gates. The canopied ram was a large hammer that was suspended and swung at the wooden gates of besieged cities. The canopy helped to protect soldiers from enemy attacks while they did the heavy work of breaking down the city's defenses. This extra protection was crucial, as cities often tried to repel attacks with arrows or stones. In addition to the covered battering ram, the Romans also used a movable bridge called an assault bridge to span moats or trenches around their walls. These bridges were quick to set up and allowed soldiers to approach the fortification without being detected or attacked. With them, the Romans could quickly cross the defenses and begin their invasion, ensuring that the attack would be successful. Roman siege engines were not only effective, but they also represented the adaptability of the Roman Empire. When a city's walls were too strong or when resistance was too intense, the Romans did not retreat. They used their intelligence to devise new ways to invade and overcome obstacles. These inventions also demonstrated how far ahead the Roman army was of other empires of the time, which were still fighting with much simpler siege techniques. The wooden barricade, another Roman invention, was a defensive structure that helped protect siege engines while they were being used on the battlefield. These barriers were built to block attacks and allow the Romans to safely set up their siege engines. They protected not only the machines but also the soldiers operating them, allowing the Romans to attack more effectively. 1. Catapults and ballistae. These devices were used to launch large projectiles, such as stones or darts. To create an incendiary effect, the Romans could wrap the projectiles in flammable materials, such as cloth soaked in oil or resin, and ignite them before launching. 2. Incendiary vases. The Romans also used ceramic containers filled with flammable liquids, such as oil, pitch, or resins mixed with sulfur. These vases were thrown at enemies or structures to cause fires, serving as a rudimentary form of incendiary attack. 3. Incendiary arrows. Another common technique was to use arrows with tips wrapped in flammable materials. These arrows were fired from bows or large launchers, such as ballistae, to set structures, ships, or enemy fields on fire. From walls to gates, every defense fell under the relentless force of Roman ingenuity. This technological superiority often led to victories without prolonged battles, as many cities surrendered rather than face inevitable destruction. The adaptability of the Roman army was another hallmark of their success. Faced with new enemies and unfamiliar defenses, the Romans consistently innovated. Their siege engines, such as mobile towers and torsion-powered catapults, were reflections of their ability to solve problems creatively. These devices demonstrated a seamless integration of strategy and engineering, cementing Rome's reputation as a leader in military technology. The role of these inventions extended beyond warfare. They symbolized the Roman ethos of combining strength with intelligence. The Romans understood that achieving dominance required more than courage and numbers, it required innovation. Their arsenal of weapons worked together like components of a finely tuned machine, making the Roman army one of the most efficient and formidable forces in history. Imagine the scene: towering siege engines advancing towards city walls, catapults launching projectiles with deadly precision, and battering rams smashing through gates with unstoppable force. Entire cities capitulated at the sight of Rome's war machines. This was not just military conquest, it was a demonstration of engineering as a strategic tool, a precursor to modern warfare. Rome's legacy as a powerhouse of strategy and innovation continues to inspire. Their ability to transform war into a science serves as a testament to the enduring power of combining intelligence and strength. When we think of Rome's achievements, we should remember that their invincibility was not just forged on the battlefield. It was in the minds of engineers and strategists who redefined the art of war. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this exploration of Roman ingenuity, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more historical insights. See you in the next video.